Next we have Michael Larson, who's from YourTutor, so we've been using that word a lot today, this morning. So YourTutor is basically a service that is going to complement our existing student support services in helping us to continually address student retention, widening participation, and thinking about achievement of our graduate attributes. And it's basically providing students with 24/7 access to academic, literacy and numeracy support. So YourTutor is being implemented through a collaborative project between the Office of the Program Chancellor, Legal Transformation, Simon Barrett, and also the Office of Student Participation and Success, Ellen Brackenreg, ITDS and the library as well. So the pilot is the first step in the upcoming launch of the Study Smart library initiative, and it will be taking place beginning this spring session. So I'd like to pass over to Michael just to give us a little bit more detail about the YourTutor service.
Great, thanks very much, Gina. And as Gina mentioned, the YourTutor service has actually been used within WSU in various capacities over about almost 7 years, predominantly for higher ed students within WSU College, but also through encouraging future students to come to WSU. So I'm going to spend a bit of time today talking about our service and product and the experience that the students can expect, also the impact upon academic outcomes. It really all comes back to what's the problem we're solving for students. And we know that students, throughout the course of their academic career, they're going to get stuck. They're going to encounter a learning difficulty at some point, and that's likely to occur at a time when regular university staff are not available. It might be at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, it might be 9 p.m. on Thursday, and one of the barriers to students actually seeking out extra assistance is that they're looking for a solution that is both personal and timely. And so I'm going to talk a bit about that and how we achieve that at YourTutor. Just a little bit of background about our company. There's approximately 35 corporate staff based here in Sydney. We have about 500 virtual tutors, so all of our tutors work from home. They set their own hours, they have various levels of specialisation. They are all 90% based across Australia and New Zealand. Right now we are trialling some tutors in South Africa and Canada. That's predominantly for the writing feedback service, but I'll talk about that in a bit more detail shortly. We have actually been in existence for 12 years. A lot of people think of us as a startup. We certainly have a startup mentality, but we've been working on cracking the code to this problem of providing on-demand support to students for a long time. In the last couple of years, we've made some huge steps forward. So this year, for example, we expect to deliver about 200,000 online on-demand learning experiences for students across Australia and Asia Pacific. So in terms of outcomes, rather than keep you in suspense, I thought I'd sort of jump straight to the end zone here. This was a study that was completed last year with one of our larger university clients here in Australia. And what you're essentially seeing there is that students who use YourTutor throughout the course of the academic year perform significantly better than their peers. Now, I would love to say that the only reason they perform better was due to YourTutor, but the reality is that we don't operate in a vacuum. Universities offer a number of different programs that support students. What we did see, however, from students was really positive feedback. We ask for a satisfaction rating at the end of every tutorial or experience, and they're generally willing to provide that. What was equally compelling was anecdotal feedback from lecturers and academic staff, particularly around academic writing. It seems to be an area that's of common weakness across our university cohorts, and so academics were definitely telling us that they saw an improvement in academic writing skills from students. WSU College. So we have been working there since 2009, and this has been a great testbed for us, if you like, for working with the larger university. The takeaway for us is in two main areas. One is student satisfaction, and you'll see here that the The average user satisfaction sits somewhere between very good and excellent. Where we see a poor rating, it's often because the student comes to us looking for just the answer, and that's not something we do. You can imagine for the integrity and sustainability of our organisation, we need to make sure the student has a learning experience. We try to make it clear that we're not a Q&A type service. We'll help you get to the answer once you've worked through the problem and understand the concept. But look, the feedback from WSU College has been super positive. So in terms of how we interact with them, there are really two ways. Students are able to log into YourTutor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but there are two types of ways they can interact with us. And the first is the Connect Live service. So this is, as it sounds, they log in, choose the subject with which they'd like assistance, and then very quickly, as in the majority of the time, as in 65% of the time in less than 60 seconds, they'll be connected with a highly qualified, well-trained tutor in a virtual classroom. And this is a chat-based interaction. So instant message along with a virtual whiteboard, which I'll show you in a moment. And people often ask us, well, gee, when are you going to add voice and add video? Students don't want that. They actually prefer to have a chat-based experience, one that is relatively anonymous, that's somewhat at arm's length, and essentially we're there in control. So once they are done, they can exit the session. They're very comfortable working with us that way. And that service is available Sunday through Friday, 3 p.m. until midnight. Obviously we see some days busier than others. Sundays and Mondays are very busy. We are trialling Saturdays. We were actually pleasantly surprised that students do study on Saturdays and they are looking for extra help on those days. So that's likely to be a permanent fixture moving forward. The other service is YourTutor Writing Feedback. And this is a service we just launched last year. It's been incredibly popular. And what's involved is the student can go in anytime, day or night, and upload a piece of written work and ask for feedback. And that feedback is, from the tutor's perspective, it's around the English language. It's not around content. So if it's an Econ 101 essay, the feedback they'll get will be around essay argument, structure, and grammar. It won't be about whether or not they've really understood the concept of the invisible hand. And it seems to be something that students really resonate with. Now, to be very clear, we don't provide them with an alternative way to present their own work. We provide them feedback so they can improve their own work. It's a very important distinction. And in fact, many of our clients see YourTutor as a powerful tool to reduce plagiarism, because students have access to a tool that is personalised, is timely, and can help them improve their own work rather than needing to take an alternative route. In terms of subject coverage, so the majority of the work we do is academic literacy. So numeracy and literacy, along with things like study skills and planning, research and so on. We do have some first year subjects that we're supporting this year. And these were subjects that we were encouraged to launch from our clients because they were high failure rate subjects. So those handful of business units that you see there are ones that we're trialling this year. But I can tell you the majority of the work, over 90% of the work that we expect to do for WSU is in English and is in maths. And heavily weighted probably towards English, assuming we see a similar experience to that which other universities have had. I touched on educational policies and what the do's and don'ts. Naturally, this should be very important to you. It's extremely important to us. Our whole organisational premise is about delivering a sound educational outcome to students. We don't provide answers. We don't provide them with written work that they can submit as their own. We've worked through this with a number of universities to ensure that they're very comfortable with the way that we approach the learning experience. and you should be really confident that at no point will we be providing students with just answers. They may get the answer out of the result of working through a problem with a tutor, but it will be as a result of their own work. So who are the tutors? So I mentioned all across Australia and New Zealand, with a spattering in Canada and South Africa. Here's a great example. Viet has been tutoring maths and statistics with us for many years. So here are some example comments of the way students are perceiving their experiences with him. That level of calibre and training and satisfaction we see from students is very, very common. So we actually don't have challenges so much around recruiting good tutors because it's actually a very popular role. Tutors select their own hours, they work from home, but we only hire about 1 in every 20 applicants. And once we've hired them, they go through essentially a content examination on the subject that they want to tutor for. They need to get 100%. Then they go through a training program with us about how to tutor online, because it is quite different from doing it face-to-face, where you have the benefit of body language and so on. This is a very dated screenshot of views that we took from WSU College a couple of years ago. But in terms of how the students get access, there's no separate log-on password. It's essentially a seamless login experience. So this link to YourTutor will be provided in every unit in which the students enrol, as well as a global access point. The reason we need this to be really prominent is that when we're introducing a new service like this to an institution, we're really looking to change students' behaviour. So we need the service to be really obvious and available, and also, frankly, we need your support, and I'll talk a bit more about that. But we're talking about changing a mindset for a student to learn a new method of dealing with a challenge, rather than throw the computer out the window or just not submit the work. Hey, this is something that you should consider. So we need to introduce that light bulb moment to them. So in terms of how the experience looks, once the student logs in, they see these two options: Connect Live and writing feedback. And just to look at the Connect Live experience before, first of all, it's a very clean, what we think of as an elegant design approach, where the tutor and the student are interacting via chat down here. So it's very bandwidth light. So if a student is using a laptop or an iPad on the bus, this is not something that's going to blow through their monthly bandwidth in 10 seconds, but it's very, very fast. And that's important, of course. We know students aren't the most patient people in the world, and perhaps we're all like that these days in a consumer-driven society. But in addition to the chat, there are these whiteboards over here as well. So when diagrams are necessary, the student can and tutor can draw there. Students and tutors can also upload docs. So sometimes we see students taking a photo of a problem in their textbook and then just uploading it through their iPad. That's very common as well. And the ratings. Students are very happy to tell us how we're doing. So about 40% of the tutorials that we deliver, we receive a rating and a comment at the end. Part of our QA system is to investigate every single tutorial that gets rated less than, well, we actually make them 2. There's another, sorry. Anything that's rated fair or poor is investigated by our QA team. Oftentimes that provides us with an opportunity to coach and mentor our tutors. Alternatively, we often see if students lose their internet connection. That's our fault apparently, but that's okay. We are really circling back to make sure we close the loop quality-wise. And on to the writing feedback. So this is a document upload process, as you would expect. This year level, that's actually specific to a different type of cohort. But importantly here, what's the question that your essay is trying to answer? So we'll ask the student what it is that the essay is trying to achieve. and also if they have any particular questions or concerns about their own work that they'd like specific feedback on. Now, importantly, we don't make any comment about whether this is a paper that is likely to receive a certain grade. That is completely outside of our purview. What we will say is something to the effect of, this is a well-constructed argument. However, and let me show you an example. Oh, here we go. How would you like reviewed? And also if there's a referencing style that they'd like us to take into account as well. But if we look at this document here, so that the tutor will take the document offline, we'll go through and make some comments, and they will talk a lot about things like structure, look at particular sentences, what's been well written and what hasn't, and provide the student with feedback within 24 hours. Oftentimes it's much less than that, and that's part of the reason that I mentioned we're trialling these tutors in Canada and South Africa, who go through all of the same vetting processes as here. But the time zones allow a tutor to be picking up an essay for review at what would be 1 or 2 a.m. here, and so return it to the student the very next morning. So that type of service is what encourages students to come back and to proactively seek assistance. In terms of reporting, and this is perhaps more at the institutional level, as you can imagine, this is a very data-rich environment. So we're able to capture great detail about the students' course, the subject that they're using, what time of day, what day of the week, their satisfaction, their comments, and really provide that back to the university. That is something that we're not only keen to do, but very enthusiastic about, because for our service to be sustainable, there needs to be a measurable outcome for WSU. So that will be a big part of the process moving forward. It can get very detailed. So we will collect, in addition to providing these type of summary reports, we will have reams of raw data. And so for those analytically minded folks, there is the opportunity to really take a deep dive and slice and dice this data, depending on what sort of outcomes you're hoping for. The majority of this raw data, it will act, because it contains personal student information, it will be quarantined within certain parts of the university, so not publicly available, but certainly there's the opportunity to analyse that further if you wish to do so. Student survey, look, in addition to the regular satisfaction survey, we can introduce other surveys at your leisure, depending on what it is that you'd like to measure from students, whether it's specific to your tutor or maybe even adjacent to. This is the type of reporting that we would expect. This is perhaps more heavily weighted than many institutions towards English. But as I touched on before, it seems to be that, and maybe I'm preaching to the converted, that really good writing skills, and academic writing in particular, has become this forgotten art, so that when students turn up in higher education, they really struggle. So a big part of our role is to try and support them in that foundational skill to keep them engaged and make sure they're continuing to have the skills that allow them to absorb the higher ed content that's being delivered by WSU. So lastly, in terms of the success of your tutor, there's a bunch of things that we can do to make the service available and accessible. Largely, it comes down to how successful we in this room are at building awareness and confidence in the use of the service. And there's a few ways that we can do that. And look, I guess part of our responsibility is to ensure that academic and learning support staff understand what's in it for yourselves and what's in it for the university. So I'm happy to talk through that and provide some additional collateral. As I mentioned at the start, one of the great takeaways that we see from our other clients is academics that are much happier with the just fundamental skills that a student is bringing into the classroom, and that allows for them to be more successful in that course and in their higher ed career in general. And one of the ways that we do this is through what's called a Lighthouse Program. So this may well be when an academic staff member will go out to a cohort and say, right, you've got your first assessment, it's coming up at this time. Part of this assessment requires you to use YourTutor. So before you submit your essay, please submit your draft and improve your essay as best you can based on that feedback. And it's a great way to introduce students to the service, to encourage them to take a look at it, because we're not just introducing, in many cases, a new brand as YourTutor, but a whole new product category that they're not aware that this type of service is even available. So it will need some encouragement from yourselves. One of the things that we can also do is circulate this link, which provides a significant number of resources, including some quite nicely put together videos that can be played in lectures, downloadable handouts and that sort of thing. We'd really encourage you to take advantage of these. We've got some that have been customised for WSU as well, but they're all available for you as of this moment. Sure, sorry. There we go.
Thanks so much, Mark. So, questions? Oh, we've got a few. All right, one. I'm sorry, Paul, up the back.
So this is a free service for students?
Correct.
And how are we paying for it?
Universities use some of the staff funding. Like the projects, the students identify that they would like to use that funding for.
So the more students we encourage to use, the more we pay.
There's a license period, so we pay over a period of time.
Okay.
The clock is ticking for the students to use it.
So it's an unlimited usage during that period of time.
And it's a pilot, so yes. Okay, any other questions?
Just wondering how long you still data for?
We have been in existence for 12 years and we have data going back 12 years.
I just wanted to ask about a comment you made about that you had found that in your chapter that voice and video was not wanted by students. So I was wondering what was the evidence for that?
We've actually run surveys every year of all our students across levels, and we ask them. And it's not that none want it, some do, but it seems overwhelmingly they're quite happy with the chat base.
I'd like to ask two questions. First of all, one is how do you address issues of plagiarism? So, for example, if a student uploads an essay with large passages of copy for review,
Yes.
and then you review that essay and you conclude that this is a fantastic piece of work.
Well done.
Really
You should be
well
published. Yes.
How do you address that?
Honestly, that is completely out of our purview. I mean, I imagine that once they get around to submitting that through Turnitin, then they'll set off all sort of alarm bells. But our tutors are not silly. If they see a first year submitting a piece of work that's absolutely outstanding, they'll either assume that, gee, this student doesn't need any help at all, or, wow, this looks like it was written by their professor. But we don't consider it our responsibility to be the plagiarism police.
I should probably qualify what I was saying. The biggest problem that we have with students is that a lot of the plagiarism is not intentional. I'm not talking about purchase essays and things like that, clearly that exists.
Right.
But it's not intentional in the sense that they either don't know what's expected of them or they're sort of not confident with their own writing skills, so they'll copy something into a passage that they have constructed partially, but there'll be a sentence or two sentences in there that has actually been just copied and pasted from someone else's piece of work. So they're getting, it will be a mixture of their own work and the work of others, and actually it's quite a lot of work to tease that out from a marker's point of view. So to what extent, if they're getting feedback on that, is that more kind of consolidating or ingraining the use of other people's material that's not being picked up at that stage?
Yeah, candidly, I don't know that we do address that right now. If a student has literally copied and pasted, someone else's work, the the tutor's probably likely to have very little in the way of feedback that can improve that.
We probably have to look at alternative.
Right, yes. What I would say, and one of the things that we do for all of our clients is actually provide students with links to resources. So if, for example, there was a resource WSU has about plagiarism, what that constitutes, then that may be something that we could provide to the tutors, that if they see something that seems too good to be true, then perhaps we could include that in a follow-up email to the student saying, by the way, here are links to additional resources that you should be aware of. That we can do. But let me also say that we are very open to continuing to evolve our service, and we're Australian owned and operated, and we build our own tech. So if there's something that we can do that does meet a need, we're very open to that.
Can I just go on from that? Do you actually collect the data where there's from the tutors that are marking those assignments where they suspect there may be plagiarism?
We don't do that right now. However, it would be trivial for us to put in a button to ask a tutor if they thought this work may be plagiarised. What's non-trivial is training tutors on what that might look like. So that would be something new for us. But again, we wouldn't rule that out.
You brought up the resources. What resources do you provide links to? Is it like generic, or is it university-based links, like teaching institutions?
They will be links to WSU resources. So you can tell us what you would like us to focus on there. It might be referencing guides, it might be plagiarism guides, but we can provide multiple.
Hi, just a technical question. I went onto the site that you put up and I can see how a student who is a WSU College student can log in, but for students who are not at the college, it does say check your provider. I'm just wondering how, maybe I missed that part, maybe you said that at the beginning, but I'm just wondering how a student who's not at the college can get in.
Sure. So it will be through Views, and it will be through in every course that they're enrolled in.
It's not in process.
Yeah, it's not launched as yet. It will be launched next week. And it will be, I would say, very obvious.
Okay. We'll be rolling it out through the month of June.
Will that be on every student's view site?
We're in the process of seeking approval from school, signing for it.
Just to clarify that, one of the things that we have to do to put anything into every view site is get the dean to approve that goes into the view site. So the deans have just been writing back just going, yes, we approve. Kim's chair of the library is managing the success of getting all those. As you can imagine, that's no small feat. They do a fantastic job. I would say very helpful. Thank you for giving the tip.
Okay.
I just wanted to float the idea, I guess, of, we encourage students to use Turnitin to submit their draft work and actually review matches themselves and perhaps interpret whether there's some inadvertent plagiarism going on. Would it be helpful to have them be able to submit that originality report to your tutor?
I don't know. It's not something that we have trained our tutors on right now. If that was something that you would like us to consider as part of schooling up our tutors to identify work that may be plagiarised and in fact clarify to students what plagiarism is, then sure, we're open to that. And we can even, through our service, promote the use of Turnitin via WSU's platform also. That's easy.
Okay, any other questions? Michelle?
We've got a play site. Would we be able to have access to this so that we could, submit a paper and test it out so that then we can recommend it to the academic authority?
Is that possible? It's possible.
Sure.
Yes, sure, it's possible.
Yes. What we can also do is provide you with, hundreds and hundreds of samples that, not samples, real life work that's been reviewed by our tutors for WSU College students, and then once it's live, follow up with examples that are real life examples. To be honest, that's probably a better use of the service than a paper which may be written by you or one of your team, but actually taking authentic student experience, we can provide tons of examples like that.
Maybe even a sample kind of access would be nice.
Well, I prefer myself
Okay.
We have to look into the process for that. Maybe you and I should talk briefly, because you have to be careful when we're using minutes from back funds. So I'd just like to look at, you know, that process.
So we'll follow up. That's okay.
Yeah, it's not something I want to do over and over again. Like just a one-off experience would be good.
I can recommend the service. It's very good.
Yeah, I was a student who turned it online.
Oh, okay, great.
So it's really useful.
Oh, fabulous. Okay.
Testimony.
There we go. Thank you.
Just hang on a second.
Just one question. I'm a supervisor in the School of Education for the primary pre-service teachers. Given the government's implementation of the land type test for numeracy and literacy skills, I think it's something like this would be really valuable as a support network for our numeracy students in particular.
Mm.
The issue that concerns me is when you put up the options for maths and English, science, etc. It seems to be that the maths is quite highbrow, so statistics and upper levels economics and stuff like that. Is there anything for students who would be working at around about year 9, year 10 level?
Very much so. So one of the largest programs that we support is WSU's Fast Forward program, which is future students. So 70-something high schools across Western Sydney have access to YourTutor at the secondary level. So Math 7 to 10 is one of the most popular subjects. So it's all levels.
I think one last question.
Sorry, it's an excellent service. My daughter used it from her local library, and it helped her with a statistical problem. The use in the tutors was perfect.
Oh, wonderful. Another testimonial. Thank you very much.
All right. So we might continue the conversation.
Sure,
during the
I'll be here
session. So thank
afterwards.
you so much.
Thank you for your support.
So that wraps up the presentations for today. And I'd really like to thank Justine, Catherine and Michael for presenting. And I'd like to put out there, maybe you would like to present at one of our future forums. So if you could contact Hermie or myself, or you can nominate a colleague that you think is doing something really creative